Hey everyone, happy Sunday. You are tuning in to the Sunday weekly warm-up where the Teach Better team gets to be live every single Sunday here exclusive to our private Facebook group to talk shop, hang out, get you ready for your week. We're really excited here because, Bree's live with me, so we're going to just be hanging out. We're breaking all the rules today, and we're going to be talking about all the shenanigans that have been going on, everything from the conference news release that happened last week in this group. Then we just recently did 12-hour live, which I know so many of you tuned into because we could see you all in the comments. And it'll be really nice. I'm excited to do some deep dive reflection. Bre, you and I have not been able to talk about this segment, so I'm so excited to get your opinion and hopefully get everybody ready for a successful week ahead as March nears closer and closer. We'll be right back for the show. Hey everyone, welcome to our Sunday weekly warm-up. I can't believe y'all aren't sick of us because we were just live for 12 hours yesterday. We're thrilled to be here with all of you and keep our weekly shows going. Bre Fennell, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. No matter how many times I hear that intro song, I can't help but dance to it.
I think it's so good. I think it's so funny. And I like that it features our team members because every time I'm like, oh, I miss them. I'm going to reach out. Like, it's a reminder for me being like, ooh, I haven't talked to Bre or Liv or Andrea. I'm going to text them.
They're all great people. I love them all.
Yeah. So I know you and I were like together yesterday, but not together because I watched 12-hour live and you watched 12-hour live, but we haven't been able to talk shop. So thanks for coming and hanging out with me on a Sunday.
You're welcome. I can't wait to dive into this. I feel like it was such an exciting day.
Yeah, there's going to be so many things to talk about. Before we get into 12-hour, though, hey, everyone in the comments, we love seeing you here. Feel free to comment, say hello to each other. Remember that our Sunday weekly show is exclusive to our private group strictly because we want not only for you to engage with us, but we want you guys to engage with each other. So by streaming in one place, you can see each other's comments and engage and share resources that way, which we really enjoy. Bre and I are excited to dive into so many good things here. And of course, answer any questions you guys have. Bre, I think we could share some spoilers, like behind the scenes stuff too. If anyone's kind of curious how the Teach Better team works outside of 12-hour, Bre, how has your week been? How's your weekend?
It's been great. Just a lot of family time. We've had some really decent weather in Ohio the past couple of days. So got a good family walk in and just got to hang out with them and just enjoy my family. So, and my Teach Better family included. So my son yesterday was like running up anytime he heard any of your wonderful commercials you made. And he's like, hey, I know that song. I was like, probably because you at least hear it once a week.
We had some fun commercials. I think it's hard when you're working on a project for so long that then when it's finally released, it's almost like you're your worst critic. Like the commercials were cute. I had so many things I would do differently, but I'm really glad that my one goal with those commercials, like I said, two goals, was one, to highlight the just vast reach of the team, the so many things that we do. And then the other was to highlight people. I wanted to get as many Teach Better team family member faces in the commercials. Like I cannot tell you, Bre, how much footage I went through trying to find somebody somewhere so that we could throw them in a commercial. And my hope was it would be kind of fun for people to watch and be like, oh, that's me. You know, I don't know. I kind of wanted that opportunity that people wouldn't expect. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I love that because I know that there was one capture of me actually presenting at the conference that I didn't even know existed. So when I saw it on there, I was like, oh, look, there's me.
Yeah, Bre, I can tell you, I feel like people need to reach out to me if they saw something they liked because Bre, I have so much footage of you presenting that I don't know how you might want to use it, but like to grab stills from it or like use that video in some way, I need to be better and go back through all the footage I have and start cutting stuff up and randomly emailing people like, here's 5.5 minutes of your face I found. Enjoy.
Right, exactly. It was interesting too to see like like people's reactions, like when we had the video with the keynote speakers and just like the looks on people's faces, it was just like genuine footage. Like it wasn't anything that was planned. It was like he caught moments where we were just, being ourselves and really enjoying the moment. And I loved that.
Yeah, I like those candid moments. Our photographer did a great job. So shout out to Ryan, who did our photography for the conference. And then also, I know we have so many new ambassadors who either were or weren't at the conference. So I pulled all their headshots and featured them in the ambassador commercial. So I see Marcus is commenting today as we're kind of going through saying hi to everybody. And it's like, ooh, don't forget, like your face was in there. It's just so fun to see the people of the Teach Better family. You know what I mean?
I agree. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but I was an ambassador. So being a former ambassador, I still kind of stalk the Voxer group, and it was so fun to see the reactions. Our ambassadors showed up yesterday. So not only were they in the comments, they were taking notes, they were posting things on Twitter and Facebook. And it was like, oh yeah, that was a great takeaway. Shout out to Holly Stewart, who did a phenomenal job taking notes, and definitely saw that on Twitter this morning. I just absolutely loved it. So the ambassador commercial was one of my favorites.
So good. Yeah. So I think there was like somewhere around 10 commercials total. I really would be remiss to say, I think I got so many faces. Like if you watched 12 Hour through its entirety and didn't see your face, you should DM me, because I bet I could find it and tell you where you were located, maybe once or twice. So I mean, it would be funny. I would be happy to play. We have those commercials obviously in this program if any of you missed a commercial that you want to see, but it was just kind of a fun little addition that helped us with transitions, Bre. That's why we had commercials initially when 12 Hour started. We actually did a 12 Hour where there weren't commercials. We at least did like 1 or 2 12 hours that didn't have commercials. And then we were like, how do we get people on and off stage? And like, oh,
it was just like a blink, like, hey, here we are.
Commercials.
I think that if somebody wants to see a commercial, they should put it in the comments so that we know that we should pull it up.
Yeah, let us know. Let me look. Okay, so if I have to like switch our background here. So like I'm going to go to the 12 Hour background since we're talking about this. And again, Bre, we're like going to break all the rules. It's fine. So we had the quick 12 Hour clip that you saw a few times. We have the ambassador commercials, the blog commercial, the giveaway commercial, the Speakers Network commercial, the team commercial, the show commercial, the thank you commercial, and the admin commercial. I will tell you, the most annoying commercial was the show one. Did anyone see that one? It was so annoying.
Oh, we have somebody who missed the ambassador commercial. Just want to note that we had a special code going on that was yesterday only during that 12 Hour live. So if you see that code, Ray, they aren't able to use it, right?
That's true. And I'm glad you said that, because the codes are in these commercials if we choose to play one. And it was really fun to feature that during 12 Hour, but early bird registration's open. So even if you didn't use the code, you can still go register officially, which is super exciting.
Incredibly exciting. I am so excited. I have to tell you guys that I am so glad that the cat's out of the bag about the conference, because now I can just talk about it all the time. Like I can pull out like props from the last conference. I can talk about networking.
I love it.
Not give too much away.
I love it. That's so true. And I love, Bre, that you were texting me in the background being like, this person's really great. Are they coming to the conference? And I secretly was like, yep, but shh.
Right. Don't tell anyone.
I know. Wait, I love that somebody commenting. Sorry, we can't see your name because you're in the private group and you have to like give permission. But this one's saying the show commercials threw you off. Yes. It's Bre, do you remember that one? It's like every 3 seconds, it's like, welcome to the, oh my God, it's just so annoying.
I don't think any of the commercials were annoying, Ray.
You're wrong.
Just want to give you I'm wrong. I just want to give you so many props. It was so good.
All right, let's do the ambassador commercial real quick, because someone says they didn't see it. And especially, I know not everybody's an ambassador. So if you are an ambassador, though, this was a fun one to see because you were featured in it. Let's just play a quick second of it. Does that sound okay, Bre?
Yes, sounds good.
And then, friends, you can go back and watch 12 Hour. You can see everything. kind of a fun one. So they were all fun. If you guys missed the commercials, you can go back and rewatch those. But again, the goal was to highlight people. That was the goal of those commercials.
I love it. I may have taken one of those ambassador pictures, and it was so fun just for them to all like be in the same place, because some of the ambassadors hadn't seen each other yet. And so when we call everybody over to like get in this one big picture, it was like a family reunion.
That's so fun. I love that. That's we'll do that every time at the conference. I hope you all have registered for the conference. I know Dawn Harris is in here. Hi, Dawn. Good to see you. She said she just found out that the conference is officially on, and she's really excited. Dawn, you have to be there. It was so fun having you this year. And you are somebody that I have really good footage of. I'm trying to think of what commercial you were in, Dawn, from 12 Hour, but I used footage of you. You must have been getting your book signed with Mickey Smith Jr. or just talking shop with him. But it was just such a cool interaction. I have some good B-roll of Dawn at the conference. So we got to use that in some of the stuff.
This is a funny comment.
What? My favorite comment about Ambassador Rehearsal came from Mike, who said, next. Yes, exactly. So fun. Well, I'm excited that everyone's excited about the conference. I know, Bre, we've been having to be very like tight-lipped about the conference. So I'm glad the venue and the date is officially out. Next comes all the other stuff. But I kind of liked combining it with 12 Hour. What was your thoughts on that?
I loved it. I thought it was a great idea. And I think that it just really is like an appetizer to the conference. We're like just sampling the things that may be to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a beautiful way to think of it, because 12 Hour brings everyone together virtually to hang out. And then it's essentially like half a year, and then we get to physically all be together. And so I kind of like this fall spring rotation. Speaking of being able to give a little appetizer of what's to come, should we look at a few segments from 12 Hour and maybe give our thoughts on them? Like maybe give some reflection in case people didn't catch all the segments?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, why don't we start? For those of you who joined 12 Hour, we won't go through all of them, but maybe this will just give you some snippets. Or if you did watch the whole thing, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Like that would be great. Bre, I think maybe we start from the beginning. One of the first crews that we had on was James Miles' crew. Those wonderful gentlemen that joined us. They're actually at the Teach Better conference and then joined us for 12 Hour. I have a little clip here. Should we play it and then maybe do a deep dive?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it.
They could write a song. They could create a play. As long as they're demonstrating content understanding, you're benefiting them. The test scores are frivolous, right? The Alfie Kohn said they mean nothing, right? I saw in the chat, George Curl said something similar about that. Who cares about test scores? They don't define you. What does define you is how you associate with the rest of your team, your class, your school, your colleagues, your peers. And then how do you get through society, right? We're all contributing members to society. That's it. Go ahead, Ross. I rambled for too long.
No, man. You the fresh professor, man. I just took some notes. No, I just was thinking, I know in the past, I taught everything from 5th grade to college. And, at the younger grades, when you have a tough nut to crack, they're usually going through something. That's what I've noticed, right? And so trying to get through is very difficult. And so some tips I would give for a teacher is, first of all, you got to keep trying. You can't give up. Like you can't just get to a point where you're like, all right, that kid, I'm sick of him. I can't, right? And as much as we want to feel that way because we're human, right? Yeah. Like I'm tired. Like when you get home, you can say that I'm sick of this kid, right? But when you're there, you're back at it and you're talking to them. What I found that works is really trying to find something that they're into, right? I had a young man who used to come to school and I couldn't crack that nut. He just wouldn't deal with me. He didn't like I don't mess with none of y'all. I don't like none of y'all. And and that was his attitude. And so one day I got there and I got to school a little early and I noticed him ride up in a skateboard. And I was like, Now, what do I know about skating? Absolutely nothing. Right?
You're not a skateboarder? Come on.
I'm not looking like it, right? But I think that's the best thing because John and I, when we're doing PDs, we always have teachers say, I don't know anything about hip hop. I don't know. I can't do this. I don't know.
Yes.
That's the best, because the kids want to teach you. And once they can do that, the connections there.
I loved their segment. They focused so much on ideas that I believe in, but they approach things in a way that make me nervous. And I liked that they made me uncomfortable. Like talking about infusing hip hop into lessons, talking about ways to form relationships with students that don't always feel like comfortable was so exciting. What were your thoughts on their session?
I think you're exactly right. I think that sometimes when we try to relate to kids, they were talking about like infusing hip hop, and in the comments, a lot of people were like, I'm afraid to do that because I'm afraid of the language. I'm afraid of this. And then seeing people like put workarounds in there, like, okay, well, if you do it on this network, you can't, or on this platform, like on Spotify, you can take out the explicit, or you can do it in a way. So it wasn't like people were like, no, I can't do this in my classroom. They're like, how can I do this in my classroom? And that to me was so powerful. And the skateboarding thing, I think that sometimes not just as teachers, but as parents, kids are into things that we don't connect with or we don't have experience with, but that doesn't mean we can't have conversations about it.
So spot on. I loved that yesterday was about sharing resources and brainstorming, especially during their session, because they were really talking about bringing students' interest into the classroom, which is something, literally, it's my deepest passion. However, things like music it really make me nervous for those reasons. And if you don't know the right resources, you don't want to do it. Or if you're like, I'm not a hip hop expert, how am I supposed to pretend that I am? I really appreciated their validation that we're not only supposed to bring students into that process, but teachers can also share resources that they have access to. And they were just cool, like, guys. Like, I just felt like being around them made me a cooler educator, because every single one of them was streaming in from a different spot around the US. And they all are in the trenches talking about how they're relating to students. And I loved their passion for education and pedagogy, coupled with bringing relevancy and culture into our classrooms, which was just the icing on the cake.
Yes. And they were learning from each other. Like, even in the moment, they're like, I'm just listening to you and I'm taking notes. And I feel like that's just such an important part of like the Teach Better team and the Teach Better mindset, is just listening to each other, getting ideas, and then figuring out how we can. I mean, they celebrated each other. They celebrated each other's books, each other's ideas.
Right. And I love that. And these are educators that have worked together for a long time, but we're still able to brainstorm just like we do with our colleagues, right? We go to our friends down the hall and we say, I have this problem, let's problem solve. I just feel like they did a great job modeling all of that for us. It was so cool.
It was so cool. And can we just say, Katie was totally fangirling during that. I saw her at the conference with them and she was like, I found the coolest guys. They're going to do 12-hour. Like, she knew it. We didn't even know if we were going to do 12-hour, but she knew she had already gotten them for the 12
I know. So cool. And honestly, I really want to encourage everybody, if you missed that specific segment, those 4 educators are so well accomplished individually. And they kind of went through that in the beginning. And I loved hearing about how each person kind of was on their own education journey and then connected with like-minded educators that made them better. It felt very Teach Better-esque.
Yes, absolutely.
So fun. So Bre, the one after that was actually Dennis Shearing. Can we throw him up next?
Do it.
All right, we'll be right back.
You're a math or a science teacher or somebody else who teaches some things that has like a broken down rubric piece to things, you've probably said, well, they got this quiz and this question's worth 5 points, but the answer is only worth 1. So you got to show me your work and then you're going to get the rest of the points, right? You know what? If what you really wanted was for them to show you their work so that you could understand that they got the process that you wanted them to learn, put your money where your mouth is and take that point off, put the answer on the quiz. Here's a problem. Here's the answer. Go. Show me you know how to get there. That's what I want to see. I don't care if it's right or wrong. I want to know that you know the process. So here's the right answer. Find your way. The same way I put an address into the GPS before I leave my house. I got to know where I'm going before I start taking my turns. Then you release this anxiety of, oh, I'm not going to be right. I'm going to be wrong. What do I do first? Now it's I can do anything and I'll find my way there. But if really what I wanted to do was say, I don't care how you get there. Just show me that you know to do this thing. We're at that point right now. That's why multiple choice questions were invented.
Dennis Sheeran was like on yesterday. We did not have enough time talking to him.
You didn't. I remember like toward the end of that segment, you're like, wait, I need more time. Like what else can you tell us? Like give us like a quick overview. If you could tell us anything, help us out. And so
I feel like he threw us all for a loop because he's somebody I love spitballing with. But yesterday I was kind of like mouth open, not doing well moderating, just listening to him, because what was that? That clip right there was like 10 minutes in and he's like, why don't we put answers on tests? I'm like, what are you talking about? And it was like process over product was incredibly just so good. So good.
I have a really good friend who preaches that all the time. She's a preschool teacher and she's always like process over product, and something that it might make people a little uncomfortable, but it's like, if a kid's doing a project, they shouldn't all look the same, because if you're looking at the process over the end product, like don't show them an example and see what they come up with.
Well, the interesting part is later on in that segment, he started talking about the concept, or later on in another segment, I'm sorry, this one's coming up later. We were talking about comparison when evaluating student work. And so many of these things just kind of blended together, because as we start to look at Dennis's focus, which was asking the right questions to students to truly get authentic learning. And then later on in 12 Hour, it went to authentic evaluation of that learning. Who knew that Dennis Sheeran and Tom Schimmer or some of these other people that were featured just need to essentially work together and form a powerhouse superhero bunch?
I felt like that a lot. Like, it was like, okay, when was that said? Because it kind of like, Katie did a fantastic job. Like, it kind of built on each other the whole day. So it was like, they didn't all have the same way of going about it, but they all had these similar ideas that were just really great educational takeaways.
Well, and I think it's interesting because when we invite people to 12 Hour, for people who may not know the system, and hold on, I'm going to yell at my dog. No, okay, he's good. People don't know. We completely invite them in isolation. So we're like, hey, Bre, we think you'd be really good at talking about looping with students. Will you come on? You have 30 minutes. Ray's going to interview you. And in that moment, they either say yes or no. We didn't pay anybody that was on screen. I feel like that needs to be celebrated again, that everybody a part of 12 Hour, like, completely donated their time, including our team members. You and I were there, and it's not like we get paid extra to do 12 hours that day. And these educators all came on, but watched the segments prior to them. So like Dennis, for example, kept referring back to James Miles and that whole group of educators in his segment, because he was just listening to them and then was like essentially adding on, which was super interesting.
I love that. We have this comment up here. This rough draft culture.
Yes. Do you remember that conversation about rough drafts?
Yes. And I have to say that for me, like, I do not like rough drafts. Like, I formulate ideas all the time. Like, I see things very visually in my head, and then I want to put it down. I have lots of ideas, and you know this about me. Like, I have to formulate those ideas so I can pinpoint what it is that I actually want to say to you. So I have all these ideas and I visualize it, and then I want to put it down. I don't necessarily want to submit for rough drafts because I'm telling you what I know, and I formulated it in a different way.
You know, it's interesting when you say that, because I think that a lot of people, depending on the topic, would make similar arguments. I think the rough draft conversation really led into itself well when we were thinking through just the process of enhancing an idea. So for you, you're thinking of a rough draft as literally taking something and handing it over, which I think the conversation more simply lended itself to you taking thoughts and organizing it in your brain. while we don't see it, you're essentially drafting. So
Right.
I think that rough draft culture that was mentioned numerous times really focused on the fact that whatever your initial thought is, isn't the only thought, and
Right.
that we need to take feedback and learn with others and have conversations, which Bre, I can tell you working with you, you do so well. It's the best to brainstorm with you. So you really, I think, use it in a way that just isn't as black and white as maybe the examples that were given.
Right.
You know, a lot of people are mentioning Tom's segment. We're going to bring that one up next, but there was 2 segments in between Dennis and Tom. So we're going to go back to them in a sec. But I do think Dennis and Tom, so I'm sorry I'm not using their full names, Dennis Sheeran, go look him up, and Tom Shimmer, those 2 segments went together really well. So let's show Tom's segment real quick.
Yes.
What would be your second quick fix that you feel like our community here can be reflective on?
The second quick fix would be make sure a student's grade is not determined by comparing them to who else is in the room or the achievement levels of their peers. So it's not about a norming process where we compare students to students. When you criterion reference, which is about basing grades on clear success criteria, you have to almost erase your mind and go, this is what the student has demonstrated. This is how I have assessed their level of performance independent of anyone else. Because when we start getting into comparing students to students, we're getting away from criterion referencing and we're getting into norming. We don't have enough students in our classrooms or schools to do true norming, but that idea of comparing students to students is problematic. So you hear it come out in conversations or when teachers are co-grading or things like that. Well, they'll say, well, if this is a 4, how can that be a 4? And that starts to bubble up to the surface. And that tells you that the teachers are probably starting to compare. And so what ends up happening is we end up grading like figure skating judges, where a figure skating judge has to award a gold, silver, and bronze. And what the figure skating judge does is they don't give away too high a marks early in the program because someone later in the program may skate at a better level. Well, we're not doing that. We're not awarding medals, but sometimes teachers will inadvertently grade that way. So for some of the assignments, for example, early in the stack, they'll say, well, this is good, but I don't want to give away too many 4s or too many A's early in the stack because someone deeper may have written a better essay or and that should be irrelevant in our grading. The grades are based on clearly articulated success criteria, and it should be the student against the criteria, erase your mind, student against the criteria, erase your mind, student against the criteria. That's the way I would approach it.
Bre, I have so many thoughts. Where do we begin?
I know, it's so good. What do you think is like the most standout comment?
I loved that Tom came prepared to provide 3 specific fixes for grading. If you are someone listening that didn't catch that segment, or if you're just working on grading in general, I would encourage you to go back and either listen or re-listen to that segment. I know this is probably going to sound so dumb, Bre, but Tom is so brilliant. He is such a nice and good human being, but I want to re-listen to that segment on like half speed because he speaks he's so articulate and he says so many phenomenal things. I vividly remember, I interviewed him, I think, for an hour. I remember being like, hold on, I need to process the comment you made, but the next comment also was good. So I didn't have time to process that one either. I don't know how to explain it. Can help me. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean. And I know like further on in that conversation where he was like, if you and another teacher are, you're consistently on the same page, that helps the students. But if you're 2 different teachers in 2 different rooms and you're constantly 1 point off, like you're always giving a 4 and you're always getting a 3, then it's not a student problem. It's something that you have to sit down and collaborate with and figure out why you guys have 2 different ideas about, what a student should achieve in that grade level.
Well, I think that's the blessing of welcoming in Teach Better family members to be featured on something like 12 Hour Live, because Tom does this for a living. I mean, he literally, we talked about at the beginning of the segment, is he travels around the world and does this work for educators. So he knows what he's talking about and he knows what's important. And so I feel like that was so well articulated in his answers because he was very concise while also giving some gray area for those mistakes to happen. He didn't come in and say, okay, well, this is the way it has to be done or else. He had so many moments in his descriptions that gave educators permission to dabble, identify a mistake, adjust a little bit, start here, and then grow from that point. And I need that with grading. I don't know how you just turn around and change your grading without that space to try something, see how it feels, see students' reactions, and move forward from there.
I know. And it's so interesting too, because with looping, like every year I have to print off my standards because I have to recalibrate my brain, because I'm like, I know where they came from, and I need to know where they need to go. And so being able to look at those all the time, but sometimes when I'm building something for a grid, this is my first year using a grid, I have to keep going back to those standards. And so I think that's great advice, like to go back and look at what those norms are for your grade level, because sometimes, like in Ohio, sometimes they change. And I know that's like a bigger, broader conversation, but that when you're building your grids and you're relating them to a grade, then, you have to really know your stuff, know where to go.
Yeah, and that came up in a segment I did with Stacy Benton. Then later on in 12 Hour, we built a second grade grid all together. What I loved about that is that Stacy was the perfect educator to have on for that segment. I was so glad that she chose to share the screen with me. And we honestly just like completely brainstormed. If you guys didn't watch it, I just want you to know it was messy. It was hard. It was, there were mistakes that were made. And I really value that, because lesson planning, being an educator, is messy, and our lesson planning is messy. But one of the most beautiful things I love that she highlighted was that it was a second grade grid, but she brought the second grade standard, the first grade standard, and the third grade standard, so we could look at that whole student's kind of like process in learning. And it helped her build her grid, not only in the scaffolding, but in the enrichment. So huge shout out to Stacy, just being a real human for all of us on camera, which is so just lovely to see. I loved it.
That had to be one of my favorite segments, just because I was like, it was like Jeopardy. I was like, yes, 5 minutes. Like I was like trying to guess what she would put in those boxes, because I was a second grade teacher last year, and I totally relate to, if they don't have that previous skill, even though I might have taught them in first grade or taught them in second grade, that doesn't mean that this year they have it to mastery. They might need a refresher so that they can show that mastery, so that you can move on. So I love that she said, I look at the first grade standards, and her favorite part was doing that enrichment. I thought that was so cool, just watching the comments and seeing like how many people were like, I need to look at those upcoming standards or the next year's standards so that I can provide this enrichment, because they've got it. They've showed me they have these parts.
It was so great. Yeah. Shout out to Stacy. I know she's in the comments. We're probably embarrassing you. I'm sorry. We're singing your praises, but for any of you listening, if you are interested in building a grid, this was not like a formal training where I just like spoke at Stacy the whole time and lectured her on how to build a grid. We just got to organically talk, and we took notes on screen so you could see it. And right or wrong, we didn't talk about the grid until we were live. All we did is she told me she wanted to do telling time, which I thought was cool, but I didn't know the standard. And we shared a Google Doc. So and the Google Doc was blank besides the template I set up that you guys all saw me bring up on screen. So it was very much the beginning components. And I just thought it was a cool way to see the grid in a different light. It was more casual. So
it was so good. Also, I was like throwing in the grid method resources in there, because like you had produced something that was so well received that Megan also made a mock-up of it and shared it with some of us. And so I was so excited to see that, because it was just so clean looking and so inviting that people just really want to build a grid now, right?
Hey, go build a grid. And if you need resources, let us know. Honestly, the best part, and Bre, obviously you know this, but we do this kind of stuff with educators all the time. And in hindsight, like you should have built the grid with Stacy because you guys had the same like knowledge base of students. Like I've never taught second grade and never plan to. But something I just want to challenge people is that like if you thought that was cool or you've been thinking that might be something you want, maybe Stacy inspired you, reach out to Bre or I. Like we would love to build a grid with you and we won't put you on camera. You don't have to be brave like Stacy, but we'd love to start with you because Bre, I know you have so many resources. Our team has so many resources to share. So the more the merrier.
What's awesome too is I'm an Ohio teacher and Chad has already broke it down. So if you're have an upcoming evaluation and you're worried, like I can't do a grid for this, he has it broken down so beautifully for our new evaluation system that a grid fits perfectly within.
Yeah, we also have that same breakdown for the Danielson framework. So if any of you are evaluated on that framework, we also have that worked out, which is kind of nice. Okay, Bre, the other clips I have here, I have Rizzo, CJ, and Jen. Who do you want to move to next?
I think we need to move to Rizzo. That was just my initial.
Okay. I love all these clips because I'm like, oh yeah, that was a really good one. But then I looked at the rest, I was like, they were all really good.
We would just be here for 12 hours. Let's be honest.
Honestly, Bre, I cut up Jen's and I was like, I can't cut up anymore because you and I will be live for 12 hours again, talking about 12 hours. So I only did a few and then people could put the ones we were not highlighting right now in the comments they enjoyed. We'll be right back.
180 kids, even some teachers even more than that. Because, some of you, they throw you like 25, 30 kids at a time. You put names or you have, an activity where you put kids' names up on the wall or you put kids' names up on now, we're using technology. You put it on a Google slide or whatnot, and you post those positive comments about them daily. You post those positive comments about them weekly. They then post positive comments about themselves. But why are we only doing that with kids, right? Who do we need to do it with? Dennis touched on this earlier. We also need to do it with our teachers during your PLCs, your professional learning communities. You get together, you pass, really, really old school, guys, because I'm super old school. You pass a paper around that has every person's name up at the top, and everybody has to write one positive comment. If you cannot possibly come up with one positive comment about that person, you haven't gotten to know them enough. Or about that kid, you have not gotten to know them enough. That's something so simple, so minor. That
there's
I wasn't ready for it to end.
I know there are so many good student and staff activities that was mentioned. I know we have another one coming up here in another clip, but I liked the activity Rizzo was talking about because I actually had a principal that did that with our staff, but I never did it with my students. And I feel like that would be really interesting. Have you ever done that with your kids?
Yes, we did that for Valentine's Day. Well, like one of the days before that, they all had a little box and they had like fake little chocolates in it. And they all went around and wrote something nice about their classmates. And it was so cool because we actually have a new student and him seeing that so many of his classmates already took the time to know like real things because they couldn't just go around and be like, you're cool. I was like, that wouldn't be very fun to read, right? If everybody just said you're cool. We all know you're cool. Like, let's think about things that we actually know about this person. And so these third graders, they really took time, and we have amazing paraprofessionals that work with our classroom. And we took the time to do one for our Miss Heather, who was in there with us at the time. And even for her, like she's a grown up, and these third graders just like wrote the nicest things about her. So such a powerful activity that I would totally recommend doing. And I knew about that because I was in her session at Teach Better 22.
Isn't that funny that you like learned something at the conference and then she comes and shares similar ideas and like gets to elaborate, and then you're sitting in the comments like, I took your suggestion, I did it. Bre, can you give me some examples of some things that you feel like are good answers for that activity? Because Rizzo had a great segment. I hope you guys go listen to it. She had tons of information, but I kind of left wondering what the final product would look like. And because you did it, maybe this is the missing piece that I'm looking for. What are like the things that you saw fill some of these students or teachers' pages?
Well, I know this is like kind of going off topic, but it will go back. So one of our big standards for third grade are character traits. And we have learned a lot about like how to describe characters and the way they behave or what they like. And so I feel like they kind of took that standard that we had learned so much about and brought it into this activity, because instead of just saying like you're cool, they use a lot of great adjectives, or they mention something that people like you are amazing at throwing a football, or like you are a math genius, like things that they know about this person that would really build them up. And so, and we talk about that a lot too. Like we're building people up, not tearing them down. And so I really enjoyed that. And I saw a lot of the kids, we have these like clear folders, and in the front they put like their homework organizer. And some of the kids had stuck that in the back of their folder so they could still see it. And I was like, what an impactful thing. And who was it that said you have the time? I think it was her in her session, because I wrote it in my sketch notes, like you have the time, you can take 1 minute, because she was talking about dancing. So you can take 1 minute. So it's not that I didn't have 500 other things to do that day, or we didn't have snow days or PD days off, but that is an activity that they're going to remember and obviously meant something to them.
So special. The small little adaptation we did when we did it as a staff, which my leadership team did for us, it was so nice, is it was just one word that you wrote, but you couldn't duplicate a word that was already on their paper. So it really caused not only that creativity, but the vocabulary and kind of the fun, authentic element of all this. So it'll be exciting to see educators try that. And Rizzo had so many things that she shared, but that was just one I thought was really cool. Another activity that came up was one in CJ's segment, which was just after. There was so much talked about here, and I cut this clip a little early because he gets very personal, and I thought that that would be something all of you would enjoy, but I think you should see the segment about him to then learn those pieces of CJ, but this one I really liked. Here, let's look at this one.
You know, I think that it's what do you do with the giftedness that you've been given, right? So everyone has like their own thing that they're bringing into their school. So what do you do with that? So one of the things I did is it's trial and error, a little bit of it. But what I found, because sometimes you will overshare. I'd rather have that problem than have the opposite.
That's true.
We do a project in the beginning of the year that's called your Life Odyssey that I suggest every teacher do this. It is literally 10 moments in your life between birth and now that made you into the individual you are today. So I do one of myself first, and I talk about some things that are kind of vulnerable, that they used to feel more vulnerable than they do now, really. But it was like,
ooh, that's where it got juicy. So you'll have to go listen to that segment if you missed it. But I loved the activity he's talking about, and it really left me thinking about what mine would look like. What are your thoughts on this, Bre?
I love it. And that was something that I saw a lot in the comments. People were like, I want to do this Life Odyssey piece in my classroom, or even just for themselves, to think about that. But I feel the same way that he does. Like, I would rather share a little bit too much about my life, because if you ask me, like, who is your favorite teacher of all time? Like, I would tell you my first grade teacher, Mrs. Helly, and I knew so many little things about her that she shared with us. Like, I knew about her kids. I knew her favorite number was 7. I knew that she shopped at JCPenney and loved to get a good deal. Like, I remember all of those things because she shared them with us. And I was thinking, like, through the years, like teachers were these like people who were way above us, and she brought herself to a human level. And so I feel like he's spot on.
I will say, as I've been thinking about this Life Odyssey activity, I would love to hear if any of you choose to do it and kind of how that goes for you, whether it be, by publicly sharing or privately sharing with us. I really struggled because right off the bat, CJ shared some examples, and I'm like, I don't think I have anything like that. Like, he shared really hard life challenges, and I right off the bat, I'm like, I have not lost a parent. I have not, like, those are not things that have happened to me. So do I even have anything to share? And as I started to go through, I started to really think about things that shaped me as a person. And in some way, it was kind of a practice of self-care to give myself some credit of maybe the struggles that came my way, but the things I was able to overcome that then built me into the educator I am now. And I don't know that I could limit it to just 3. He identified 3 and I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you pick? But there are at least 5 moments, anything from something very serious to something kind of silly, both personal and professional, that absolutely lean into who I am right in this moment as an educator. It was kind of fun to look at them because once I identified those things, they were elements that I did feel comfortable thinking in theory, sharing with students, because they really are such building blocks for me that I think it would be wonderful to have our students know those tidbits about our lives so that they can better understand how to support us as people, but then also maybe our strategy or passion for our education's field, you know?
Absolutely. And sometimes you don't even know a student needs to know a certain thing, like, you know, having divorced parents or having a parent pass away. And like when you have like those moments that you can say, hey, me too, like that is something that happened to me. Like, do you need to talk about it? I feel like those like authentic moments of sharing sometimes are really powerful too.
Okay, I'm being a little vulnerable here, so tell me if I need to stop. But I kind of feel that way, had that thought an hour ago in the same vein about our community knowing that about each other. Because I wonder sometimes we talk a lot about sharing with students, and that segment was so good with CJ. The lens for me is how do I then translate that for our community? And sometimes I feel like we don't share enough of our personal lives with our community so that they have those same benefits that we're talking about our students having with our teachers. Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think we just had a professional development at school, and I shared that I am dyslexic, and people were like, I didn't even like, I had no idea, because you write books, like you do these things, you do, like, I had no idea that that was something that you have. Like, how long have you known? How did you experience these things? And so it was a moment of me being vulnerable. But for me, it was like, I might be able to help kids or help with this professional development or help understand why the dyslexia laws are important because I have had this experience. So I'm sharing that with the community, but also, you know, it was just something that was very like authentic for me. Like, yes, I have this, and it's something that can really be a barrier, but you know, what are ways that we can prepare ourselves so that we can help our students?
Yeah, and I think that this can go into so many different realms. I love that you can talk about dyslexia as a way to connect with others. I also think this comes into like personal lives. Like sometimes you look at somebody that you admire and you're like, wow, I want to be just like them, or I wish I looked like them. I do this all the time on Instagram when I'm following people. And then you dig deeper and you're like, hold on, they actually don't have that. It's different than I actually imagined. Or I don't know. I just feel like that perspective is important. And I don't really know how to do that better for our community, but I think I want to continue to challenge myself and continue to challenge our community to challenge us to ask those questions, even if sometimes it feels personal or even if sometimes it feels a little intrusive, because the better we all know each other as human beings, the better we can support each other as educators.
I think you're so right. And I feel like our community is a community of people who we want to help each other and we want to surround each other, but we also want to be like respectful. And so, you know, if it's something that you're comfortable sharing and you think that one of us could help you in some way, or just have something that you need to, like, we're here and we care about you. Like, it's just a genuine thing. So,
yeah. I felt so bad at the Teach Better conference for 2022 that I was so sick. Like that was like really weighing on me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not showing up well for people. I look disgusting. I feel terrible, whatever. And then I really did like, I would truly a few weeks ago, I was like, you know what? Yeah, it wasn't great. I hopefully, God willing, I'm not sick at the next one. But like, it's okay that our community sees that like we're stinking human beings. Like we all have gone to school with cold medicine and like tried to power through. And I don't know, just sometimes those moments are more important than we think. But anyway, I don't know.
And I think people showed up and showed that they cared about you too. Like, hey Ray, you can go sleep. Like it's okay if you go sleep. Or
So
I
funny.
feel like you kind of could see us taking care of each other as well.
Yeah, I like that. I like that we can show up for each other in a lot of different ways. So, all right, let's show this last clip here because we've been live for 15 minutes. I can't believe how quick this went, Bre. So let's at least show this clip and then we can answer any last questions people have. And then, of course, go check out 12 Hour because we were only able to highlight like 4 or 5 segments and there was 12 hours of content. So give us 1 sec.
Regardless of what grade you teach, elementary teachers, I think, have it a little bit worse in terms of like how these blocks of time are spread out. But even secondary teachers, for most teachers, you're not getting more than a half an hour or 45 minutes of consecutive time that you can work. And for teaching, some of our work is very creative, right? Lesson planning is very creative. Grading sometimes is very creative, especially when you're trying to provide feedback. And creative work takes flow, and flow takes time to get into. You can't just jump into flow. And so understanding that the schedule itself is not necessarily built for the type of work that teachers are doing. We have to do a little bit of calendar blocking, like you're talking about, finagling, to try and figure out how to do our best type of work. So what this looks like is identifying where you have blocks of time to work and figuring out what blocks of time are best for the type of work you need to do. So for example, creative work, I know that I don't want to put that type of creative work in any block of time that's shorter than 45 minutes, because for me, I'm not going to be able to get into flow unless I have at least 25 minutes, and then I need time to work. So that's where like when I was full-time in the classroom, K-12 classroom, I loved having an hour block of time after school or a 2-hour block on the weekends, because that's where I would put all of my creative work. And in those shorter blocks, those 15-minute blocks of time, 30-minute blocks of time, we can figure out, okay, what other tasks do we need to do and put those tasks in those blocks. The other thing that I think you're talking about, Jeff, is
so good. Calendar blocking. You know, it's interesting. I've heard about people talk about calendar blocking 100 times because literally Jeff Gargas at any moment will talk about it like on a consistent basis. I thought Jen Manley's breakdown of creativity versus, to-do tasks was like the missing piece I hadn't thought about. I thought that was such a cool way to explore utilizing our time effectively.
I nodded my head so much at like my headband almost fell off, because I was like, yes, this is so true. Like the idea of flow. And I love that she went on to say like your weekend time, like if you can block a big chunk of time so you're not working every day of the weekend and burning yourself out, that you could chunk this time. But if it's something that you feel like it really needs more than one day, block out 2 parts of time and break the work in half. Don't work a full 2 days on something. And that made a lot of sense to me. I am not a good person to go to say, hey, can you help me plan this out? Because I'm like, yes, I'll just work all the time. It's fine. I'll do it.
Yes. But a lot of us are that way in this community and on the team. So I think by her explaining it in a way where it was differentiating between creative tasks versus just to-dos, that actually helped me understand, if I break them up that way and I block my time that way, I don't have to work all day because it's not a surprise how long tasks are going to take. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I know like I could do way better at this, like during my like prep times during school, because I do way better after school times because I just have more time. Like I have like time blindness. I'm not good at like that start and stop, like if I'm really into something. So like I'm also a verbal processor. So like usually I'm not in my room. I'm like going around, finding the counselors, finding all the people I work with so that I can talk to them verbally about something that I probably could have emailed them about. So lots of things to think about.
No, I totally get it. I was reflecting and thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, the time I've wasted thinking I should be working on a creative task when I only had 15 minutes and then feeling at the end of the 15 minutes that I got nothing done. I'm like, she explained 10 years of struggle in one segment.
She totally did. She was
So
like,
good.
this is what you're doing. Get fix that.
Well, shout out to all the guests and all of you who were in the comments during 12 Hour. It was such a fun opportunity. Just so you know, 12 Hour Live streams on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. So if you go to any of those platforms, you can find the videos. They're all saved. It's not like they get deleted at the end. I will tell you though, in about a month or two, we will actually add the entire 12 Hour Live to our academy. And that will be segmented up with like the guests specifically labeled and the topics specifically labeled for all of you. So that way, if you're not only enjoying it yourself and you want to re-listen to something, or if you want to share it specifically with a group of people, that's another option for you. It might take some time, but just another space where it, again, will be housed forever. You guys can go watch all the 12 hours that we have done over the last few years in our academy. So enjoy. And I hope you guys continue to find value in the incredible family that we've built here in the Teach Better community. Bre, I really appreciate you coming live with me and doing some reflection because I always love hearing your thoughts.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Rae.
So good. I know we have busy weeks ahead, so I'm sharing all like good vibes with all of you. Bre, I hope you have an awesome week too. Anything fun going on?
Thank you. No, last week we had our poetry cafe with my students and invited their families, and it was so awesome. But this week we are we're just starting a new book and having a, just a fantastic full week of learning.
I love it. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I hope you catch us for a Wednesday wake up on Wednesday morning, and we'll see you soon. Bye, friends.
Bye.